Hello, everyone. I'm Cal Patel. I'm Senior Cloud Solution Architect here at Global Partner Solutions US team. And my primary focus is on helping partners developing their capacity around Azure hybrid services that covers Azure Arc and Azure Stack HCI. So today we're going to look into how you can innovate across your hybrid and multi-cloud environments with Azure Arc. And I saw a couple of questions popping up earlier during internal session that how can we utilize this Defender for cloud capacities or capabilities or on the on-premises workload or workload that is running outside as your data centers. So we're going to look into that. And before we jump on the Arc capabilities, I'd like to start. I'd like to take like a couple of minutes and talk about where these Arc come into the picture and like, what was the need for for Microsoft to invest in these hybrid services. So to start with that, uh, if I quickly touch base on the needs over here, we know that if we talk about specific industries, there are manufacturing industries where they want to build more agile factories or create more resilient supply chain solutions. There can be retailers who are like who want to deliver differentiated online experience, or they want to reimagine their in-person retail experience for their customer. There can be healthcare or even financial institutes where they want to modernize payment and core banking solutions and other things. So when we are talking about, when we are talking to the customers and partners, that while every business has different growth and innovation paths, there are common interests and concerns, spanning from, supporting new product innovation all the way from, like managing their risks and how cloud can help with all of this, uh, you know, these needs that arise from the uh, you know from the current market and the competitions. So for instance, like if I talk about, many leaders are excited to evolve their product using as a service business model, or many leaders want to use all their data wherever it is, whether it's on premise, whether it's on cloud or somewhere else, and they want to turn it into new products or services. And if I talk about the application development side, many of us want to speed the innovation regardless of where your application runs, whether it's on premise, multi-cloud or edge. And also we want to tap into AI and IoTs nowadays to improve the operations. And not only that, every conversations that we have with our partner or or customers, that includes a discussion on how cloud can help meet evolving regulatory and compliance requirements and manage the risks. The organization wants to make sure that their risks are managed by securing and governing their entire digital estate, not only the cloud resources. So that is where the Arc comes into the picture. And if I talk about the Azure, the cloud, it's it's kind of important to frame that cloud is both an architecture and an operation model, right? It provides you resilient and scalable platform for your workload. It provides you kind of new services to build apps, all top with set of management and operation solutions. But not all workloads are suitable for cloud. And this cloud-based innovation up to some extent is somehow restricted just to the cloud infrastructure, to the data centers, like that the cloud providers has. Now you may have regulations to comply with, specific application latency requirements, or simply need to keep up with the competition, whatever is the reason. But it's clear that hybrid deployments, they are here to stay, and you're going to run workloads in the cloud and outside of the public cloud. It's We cannot migrate everything to the cloud to in order to utilize this cloud services. And you know it's there, workloads are there at the on-premise, and still we want to access all the benefits that this cloud provides, and we want to bring the value of cloud operations and architecture to any infrastructure, which makes your cloud to edge ecosystem simple, flexible, and secure. And this is why we built Arc. So if you look on the screens, we have certain set of tools and experience that we use for Azure based workloads, right? And all this security, operations, and governance capabilities, or the cloud native capabilities that Azure provides, the bunch of services like application services or database services that Azure provides, they all are somehow restricted to the cloud infrastructure only. And if you can, I'll just enhance that image over here. And if you look at the bottom layer here, the cloud infrastructure, now it's, expanded to the Arc-enabled infrastructure and devices. So if we, somehow, if we can utilize a service that can extend my cloud capabilities, that can extend my, Azure control plane and cover up all my non-Azure workloads, whether it's server or it's Kubernetes cluster running at on-premises or running at other cloud providers. If I can, extend my Azure platform capabilities or Azure cloud control plane and cover up all those things, I can have, similar set of capabilities like what we covered in Defender for Cloud, or, Azure Monitor, Azure policies, automations, and everything can work at a holistic level. They can work for all the workloads that are running on Azure or outside Azure, right? So there comes the Azure Arc. And Azure Arc is, you can think of Arc as a bridge that extends this Azure control plane. So you can have consistent kind of development, operations, and security model for both your new and existing workload. You can build applications and services with the flexibility to run across data centers, run at the edge or on multi-cloud environments. And you can use the same tools, the same security and governance technologies to create and manage these application resources and the workloads which are running outside Azure in the same way that you are using for the workloads on the Azure itself, right? So it's we can think of it as like just like in our data centers, what we have on Microsoft data centers for Azure, a subset of Azure services for application, for data and AI becomes available to use on your own, both new and existing hardware, your own virtualization solutions, or your own Kubernetes platform, whether it's IoT devices or integrated systems and so on. So like, what is this Arc enablement, right? So if I give you some idea, let's say you have about hundreds of servers running on, whether they are like Windows servers or Linux servers. Almost all latest and greatest operating systems are supported. All the versions of Windows and Linux operating systems are supported by the Arc. Or you have certified CNCF certified Kubernetes distribution, whether it's at on-premises or it's running on other cloud providers. So when you have this workload, all Arc enablement process is more like, more or less, it's just, deploying a connected machine agent on the server, or I'll just refer it to as Arc agent, just deploying an Arc agent on those servers or on the Kubernetes cluster. And what that agent does is it sends some set of a little, like very, a brief level of metadata to the Azure control plane. And once it is done, it takes care of registering your server on the Azure. So once you deploy that agent, your servers, on-premises servers, or your Kubernetes cluster gets listed on the Azure portal. You can see them on the Azure dashboard under whatever resource group you want. And that is it. Like that metadata you can browse on the Azure, and you can treat those Arc-enabled infrastructure components, those servers or the Kubernetes cluster, somewhat similar way you were treating or you were operating your Arc-based workload. So we're going to look into that. But when at high level, when these hybrid machines, with this, whether it's on-prem or other cloud providers, virtual machines, or whether they are physical servers or Kubernetes cluster, I'll just like call it hybrid machines. Whenever these hybrid machines are connected to Azure, it becomes connected machine, and it is treated as a resource in Azure. It's first class, resource on Azure, and each connected machine has a resource ID, which enables the machine to be included in a resource group. All right. So if I go on the next slide over here, I'll give you a scenario. This is just before we jump on the capabilities. I think this will make more sense. Let's say you have a customer and they have about like hundreds of on-prem servers, whether running Windows or Linux distribution, and some of them are also running SQL Server on top of that. When you go through the analysis for the migration, you might be able to migrate, let's say, for example, 70 machines out of there, or 70% of the machine or workload out of that. Those 30% of the workload will still remain at the on-premises, right? Now, just to operate or to manage these two different platforms, or the workload that is running on two different platforms, you still need to have different practices. You need to have different skill sets and tools available with you to operate through these different workloads. But if you Arc enable that those 30% of the workload, whether they are servers or Kubernetes distributions, let it be SQL Server as well, if you Arc enable them, you'll get the single pane of glass kind of experience on Azure portal or on Azure dashboard, and you'll see all your like 70 plus 30, all like 100 servers or 100% resources listed on the Azure dashboard. And not only that, now you can utilize same experience for, let's say, Microsoft Defender for Cloud, whether it's Microsoft Sentinel, Azure Policies, Azure Monitor, uh, any kind of like many of the services like auto manage for the servers, or there is a cluster connect that comes for the Kubernetes cluster. There is DevOps automation that is available for Arc-enabled Kubernetes clusters as well, and all those services will be available to use across this workload. And if we are talking about the partners, it definitely many of these services will generate the ACR as well for Arc-enabled workload, right? So what you're gaining over here is you'll get the standardized, or I would say centralized visibility for the workload that is running on Azure, for the workload that is running on premises or on other cloud providers, right? You get the centralized visibility. You'll get, a unified operations capability. So the same way, if you have a security solution for Azure-based workload, you can utilize something similar for your on-prem VMs or on-prem servers or on-prem Kubernetes clusters as well. You'll also get this, this regulatory compliance dashboard, which is, Indrol just presented, like give us a walkthrough for most of its capabilities. The same capabilities where we are looking at the servers running on Azure or GCP or AWS. Now you can include all your on-prem servers there as well. And it's not just like one service or two services. There's Arc enablement itself. Outside, which is a free service. Arc enablement itself is a free service. You can have your servers or Kubernetes cluster listed, on the Azure dashboard. On top of that, you can, you'll get the options to enable the security solutions or monitoring solutions, or some of these automation and compliance solutions that you're using for that you were using for Azure only workloads. So if I jump on next slide over here, these are the four core pillars, I would say four key capabilities that Azure Arc provides. I'm going to jump on the third one right now here instead of wasting time. I know it's the whole thing is a security academy. I'll emphasize more on the security component, but just to give you an idea, the first one, which is develop cloud native, operate anywhere, it talks more about Arc-enabled Kubernetes clusters. So when you have a Kubernetes cluster running at on-premises or wherever, as long as it's running outside Azure, and it has a CNCF certified Kubernetes distribution running, you can Arc enable that. Once it is Arc enabled, it will be listed on Azure portal. I'll show you how it looks on the portal in a minute. And then you can utilize, or you can utilize all the Arc capabilities for this Arc enabled Kubernetes cluster. You'll get open service mesh and DevOps kind of automation for application deployment. You can have the kind of green-blue deployment things as well. You can even store your cluster configuration on the GitHub or your source code repositories and apply all the changes from there. You can connect to that specific Kubernetes cluster from Cloud Shell or from your PowerShell session and run kubelet commands without needing to open any inbound firewall port at your customer's environment where that actual Kubernetes cluster is running on. There are like many more capabilities that gets enabled that we are going to look into in few more minutes. The next is about harnessing data insights from cloud to edge. So once you have this Kubernetes cluster, which is Arc enabled, you can create a custom location on top of that Kubernetes cluster. Let's assume that you have a factory floor, or you have an airport where your customer's Kubernetes cluster is running, and once you Arc enable that, you can create custom location on top of that. And once that custom location is created, you can actually deploy Azure data services over there. So if you are needing to run Azure SQL Manage instance, for example, but you cannot migrate your data to cloud or to Azure data centers, that is fine. You can you can deploy Azure SQL Manage instance itself on top of that Arc-enabled Kubernetes cluster. And similar thing, similar concept goes with the PostgreSQL or Azure machine learning components, or even the Azure app services. There are plenty of app services, including the logic apps and functions or API management and all those things. Those can be deployed. I know many of these capabilities are still in preview, but this is fast developing or fast growing space. So you'll see many new things coming in a general available capacity. So that is what this second capability is around. Now, third one is about security and governance across all your environments. As I mentioned, when you have Defender for Cloud working, you have different capabilities of the Defender for Cloud. You have it for servers, you have it for SQL servers, you have it for containers, and so on. Now, as we saw in the previous demo, it was covering up all Azure-based or AWS or GCP-based workloads. With the Azure Arc, you can extend that capability to your on-premises as well. So if you have on-premises Windows or Linux servers or Kubernetes clusters running in, you can secure all of them with the Defender for Cloud once you Arc-enable those components. So we will take a look in depth about this thing. And the fourth one, it's last but not least, it's about deploying. It's more about the Azure Stack family. We have Azure Stack HCI, which is our star member or a new member of the Stack family. It's not like you're creating your own data center or managing and operating through it. It's a lightweight solution. You can purchase hardware from the OEMs like Dell and HP and others. And that comes with Azure Stack HCI operating system, which has inbuilt Arc-enabled capacities. So once you connect it to Azure, you can deploy AKS on top of that, or you can create Windows or Linux virtual machines on top of that, and all of this will be listed on your Azure dashboard, and then you can apply all your security solutions on top. You can have your monitoring or observability solutions on top of that, or you can deploy other app and data services. So let's take a look on this third pillar about the security and governance that you get. So I know I don't need to emphasize here, but at Microsoft, this security is at the heart of everything, right? That we do, and we invest we invest heavily in the security and in order to ensure that our software and services are secure, and that includes this overall Azure capabilities, right? So with Azure Arc, we bring a latest security, Azure security and governance services, and Azure-centric practice to the distributed environments through Azure Arc. So you can use this state-of-art threat detection, response, and analysis for your digital assets anywhere. It's not only restricted to cloud. You can have it, or you can cover your on-prem servers and Kubernetes distributions as well. You can protect all your applications, whether they are running on VM, on container, or they're running as PaaS with threat protection plans, and whatever that is specific to that workload that you cover under this security solutions. And you can easily adopt through the dynamic visibility, compliance, and audit as well, right? So you can foster that collaboration between teams through shared tools for application, data, and infrastructure. You don't need to manage or you don't need to run silos in terms of a team that is working or securing your cloud-based workload, or there is a team that is securing your on-premises workload or any other cloud provider workloads. So this is the high-level overview of the services that are available. When we talk about the Arc-enabled servers, that supports all like many of this Defender for cloud capabilities. Sentinel is there. You can utilize Azure Policy, Azure Monitor, Azure Resource Manager, Purview, that is Azure Auto Manage and Update Management Center. All these are there. And on top of that, there is this Arc-enabled VMware vSphere capabilities also coming in. It's running in preview. But if you utilize that, if you Arc-enable your VMware-based distribution, you can manage all the VMs lifecycle and everything from the Azure portal itself, or you can use the same scripts or automations that you're using to manage your Azure-based workload on the Arc-enabled workload as well. So when I talk about this Arc-enabled server, as I already mentioned, it's more or less it's just running or deploying an Arc agent on the server. Let it be physical server, let it be virtual machine, or any latest and greatest Windows or Linux-based operating system that is running on, and you get that machine connected and listed on the Azure portal itself or Azure dashboard itself. And once it is done, there's all these Arc-enabled machines will get similar management experience that is designed to be consistent with how you manage your native Azure virtual machines. You can using Azure constructs such as Azure Policy, Microsoft Defender for cloud update management, Sentinel Monitor, and so on that we already looked into. So this is the view. There is wide range of operating systems that are supported to be Arc-enabled, and once you Arc-enable, you'll get all this capacities available at your end. So when you Arc-enable any server, as I mentioned, Arc enablement or Azure Arc itself is a free service. So once you Arc-enable any server or Kubernetes distribution, it will get listed on your resource group, on your subscription, wherever you register it. And you can still go through. You can assign resource tags on top of that. You can search them through the graph queries. You can inventory. You can do the change management or change tracking on top of that. So those services are free. When you're using Azure policies, to be precise, guest configuration policies that incur some charges. If you're planning to utilize Azure Defender for cloud on top of that, Sentinel or log collection through Azure Monitor and Log Analytics Workspace, those services comes at the cost for those specific capabilities, and they are totally optional. You don't have to use these services or this solution set on top of Arc-enabled infrastructure. If you just want to go with Azure Monitor, that's fine. If you just want to go with Defender for cloud on Arc-enabled workloads, that is also fine. If you don't want to use anything, you still want to continue with your with your customers' preferred tools or solutions, that is also that itself is also fine. So it's not like none of these are mandatory services to be utilized. The thing is, when you Arc-enable any of these servers or Kubernetes distributions, all your data, all your workload application, everything remains on-prem. It just gets represented or just gets registered to Azure, and you can manage manage this workload from the Azure itself, so that management capability gets unlocked, right? And the management covers all these things, whether it's compliance or security or operations that is listed over here, right? So if I go on the next slide, you can see this with the VMware vSphere, once you Arc-enable any of this VMware solution, you can have this VM lifecycle management capabilities. You can even go through some Azure RBAC and other access controls. You can have this single pane of glass view for all the VMs that are running across the distribution, and definitely this governance monitoring and security capabilities that you can apply on. So if I'm just quickly going through the slides to highlight the capabilities over here. I know many of these upcoming slides are already covered by Indranil in the previous session, but I'm just talking in reference of Azure Arc-enabled workload. So it's not only cloud-based workload, now it covers all your on-premises as well. So once you have Arc-enabled servers or clusters listed on your dashboard, you can still you can start using this control and delegation using Azure RBAC. You can use Azure managed identities, Azure AD-based managed identities for the authentication purpose. So if you have if your application on the Arc-enabled server or Kubernetes cluster, you can use the system assigned identity to to access Azure resources. Like if your certificate that is stored in the Azure Key Vault, you can utilize this system assigned managed identities to access the the certificate from the key vault, or if you need to access some data from the Azure storage. Next thing is Defender for Cloud. I know we already I don't already covered most of these things, but there are mainly these three capabilities: continuous assessment, overall security, and uh, uh, you know the defend kind of detect and resolve threat kind of solution that we get from the security alerts that this Defender for Cloud generates. That gets enabled for for your SQL servers, whether they're your VMs, containers, and wherever they are running, whether it's on multi-cloud, whether it's on your on-premises data center or at edge, you can have the similar capabilities for non-Azure workload as well. There are some specific features from the Defender. There is Defender for servers anywhere that I think already covered, but most of these capabilities, this vulnerability assessments, or you can say just-in-time capability, adaptive application controls, where you can create a safe list of applications that only should be running in order to control malwares from running on your workload, or if we talk about Azure policy integration, where you can set the security guardrails with the Defender. So all those capabilities gets unlocked for your Arc-enabled server. If I talk about Defender for databases or for SQL Anywhere, you can see there's all this monitoring and uh, analysis for or detecting the vulnerabilities and providing you with the uh, with the kind of threat alerts and everything that gets enabled. I know I was about to cover most of these things, but Indranil already uh, passed through most of this content already. So I'm not spending a lot of time over here, other than I'll prefer to show you more of the demo on one of the demo environment on the Azure portal itself. But yeah, if anything like anonymous database access or any specific query pattern, any suspicious database activity that happens, everything can be managed or handled by this this Defender for databases. And it's this is what we are talking about, the Arc-enabled SQL Server, which is running at on-premise or outside Azure, right? So this again, this talks about all the recommendations of security alerts and the secure score that you get for the SQL Server once you have it Arc enabled and once you enable the security solution on top of that. There is one more flavor, which is Defender for containers, which specifically, secures your Kubernetes cluster-based workload, which is running outside Azure. Again, this is not the AKS that we are talking about. This is a Kubernetes cluster running at your on-premises or at the edge location. And once you Arc enable that and enable Defender capabilities on top of that, you can go through this. It provides environment hardening. Defender for containers can protect your Kubernetes cluster, whether they're running on Azure on the Azure Kubernetes services, or running as Kubernetes on your on-premises or IaaS-based deployments, or whether it's an Amazon EKS and so on. But it continuously keeps assessing these clusters, and it provides visibility to misconfigurations and guidelines to help mitigate identified threats as well. And there is this bunch of other capabilities like vulnerabilities assessment, scanning, or runtime threat protection for nodes and even clusters itself, right? So those are there. This is high level, again, that's the same thing that we already covered about the continuous assessment and security posture management. You get the secure score, but think of it in a way that now you're not only getting the secure score or the insights for the servers and Kubernetes clusters that are running on the cloud. Now you're getting it for all your on-premises as well. So if you have a customer having, let's say there is a telecom customer having multiple private 5G network, or you have hospitals where they need high level image processing at the on premises, or there is a factory floors or mines, or any airports where they need to have local applications running in, and they are running on Kubernetes clusters, or they're running on any Windows or Linux based servers and everything. Now you can have all those things, all those all those workloads listed under the same dashboard. You can have single pane of glass view of all your workload running across all the platforms, and you get the overall secure score. You can define a similar set of policies to be applied on all the resources, all the workloads. You can have you can apply this regulatory compliance uh, uh, things across the platforms as well. And any kind of automation or access control that you want to like configure, it does at the holistic level. You don't need to have multiple teams or skill sets or tools to be used, right? And yeah, it's an agent. So once you Arc enable it, you can go on Azure portal, you can download the script from there to be executed on single machine or single Kubernetes cluster, or you can do it at scale as well. Uh, when you can utilize manage identity and or service principal, sorry, not the manage identity, but you can utilize the service principal, and you can have that script executed on multiple servers or multiple Kubernetes cluster at the same time, and all of them will get onboarded to the Azure. And then you'll get the option to enable any of these capabilities on top of that. So if I go on next slide, here is, here is the dashboard again. In previous session, you saw there was this Microsoft Defender for Cloud dashboard that was showing secure score and workload protection and everything, but that was during for the specific demo purpose. We are showing Azure and GCP and AWS based workloads. Once we Arc enable many of this on-premises servers or Kubernetes clusters, we can see them listed under the same dashboard. So it gives you a holistic view. And I just want to highlight over here that when we talk about the Azure Arc enablement, we are talking about a customer's account. Let's say, for example, one customer account, and we are talking about that customer's workloads running on Azure, workloads running at on-premises, let it be hundreds of active floors or wherever they are, all those components, plus if they are running on other cloud providers as well. You get the holistic view for that customer in the same dashboard, the single pane of glass. And when you combine these Arc capabilities with the Azure Lighthouse, which we are going to cover in the next session, now that our Lighthouse even lets you see multiple customer accounts, or I would say multiple accounts from a customer, one or more customers in the same dashboard. So then you'll get, even higher view. If you have an automation, or you have some specific set of configuration that you want to run across, let's say 10 tenants of a customer, or if you have different tenants for different customers, and if you want to run the similar kind of automation or configuration across all of them, this Azure Arc and Lighthouse combined together can enable you to do that thing as well. All right. So I prepared a couple of these slides to cover, but I see Donald already have gone through them. So I'm just skipping through some unique capabilities that we can discuss. Yeah, so along with the security components, you can have Azure Monitor as well. I know I've already mentioned about that, but you can, cover your uh, non-Azure servers and Kubernetes clusters under your Azure monitoring services as well. So you can deploy some extensions. You can see over here on the screenshot, there are some extensions for, there is this Microsoft Monitoring Agent, which might be Azure Monitoring Agent, which is the newer version of it that you can see now, but that can be deployed. And you'll get all the insights, whether it's a machine insights, if you're talking about the server, or if you talk about the Kubernetes cluster, you can get all the logs and performance metrics for that particular Kubernetes cluster that is running outside Azure. Once we Arc enable it, and once we enable or install this monitoring extension on top of that, you can see insights at the level of containers itself. So you can not only monitor the nodes, the cluster, but you can see the container level insights as well through the monitor. So these are the things. And yeah, when we are enabling this, right? Like, let's say you have 10 servers running at the on-premises, or like couple of Kubernetes distribution or clusters running at the on-premises. In general, what happens is when you want to manage them, or when you want to uh, install something on top of that, you always need some kind of inbound request, or some kind of. I'm sorry for that. Uh, so you always need some kind of hole in the firewall at the customer's location. But what this one unique capability of this Arc agent is, if you have Arc agent installed, and if I want to do let's say SSH connection, or if I want to install any of this extension, whether it's for accessing Key Vault, or whether it's for monitoring agent, or it's for Defender for Cloud or anything, I don't need to request my customer to open any kind of inbound port or connectivity in there, or make hole in their firewall. My Arc agent itself takes care of that. Even I can do SSH connection from my Cloud Shell on Azure portal, or from the PowerShell session on my local computer, and I can connect to the server that is running on the customer's secured boundaries without requesting any inbound port or any inbound rule on their firewall. So that is one good capability, and similar capability comes in terms of a Kubernetes cluster as well, where I can use the cluster connect, which kinds of creates a reverse proxy on the cluster itself, and I can run my kubelet commands from my machine, or from the Cloud Shell, run on that Kubernetes cluster that is running within the secure boundaries of the customer environment, without opening any inbound port. So overall, Arc enablement, or running this Arc agent, it only needs outbound HTTPS connection, and that is it. That's the only thing that it uses. There is no inbound requirement, inbound port opening requirement, and no other connection means are required. So that is a kind of big security relief that we get once we Arc enable them in terms of operating through these resources. Uh, there is the Sentinel as well. Once we Arc enable the workloads, you can utilize definitely. Once you have Defender for Cloud capabilities enabled on that, you can even utilize as your Sentinel, Microsoft Sentinel as well, to protecting your servers or Kubernetes clusters, or even the SQL databases as well. Here, I'm just showing you high-level view how you can have your Arc-enabled server, or even like something somewhat similar for the Kubernetes cluster, or Arc-enabled Kubernetes cluster, and how it connects to the Azure. So all you can go directly over the internet. You can use proxy, or even you can utilize Azure Express Route or site-to-site VPN, and take advantage of private link to connect to the Azure resource manager itself. But all it needs is outbound HTTPS connection. There is nothing going back to your customer's account, or to the server, or the cluster that is Arc enabled. Similar for the VM extensions. I know, like, we will not go in depth over here, but it's all, you can manage all the extensions, whether it's for monitoring, whether it's for automation, whether you want to run custom script on top of your Arc-enabled server, or you want to defend it using Defender for Cloud, you want to have Key Vault extension set up, log analytics, and everything you can do from the Azure portal itself, or from the PowerShell session that you're running in. You can do it on the single machine, single cluster, or you can run it at scale without needing to have any kind of any other tool, or any expertise outside Azure. This is the SSH connection that I was mentioning. If you this is just at high level, but if you have your server running in, which is Arc enabled from Azure portal, from the Cloud Shell, or from the PowerShell session that is running on your local machine, you can initiate the SSH connection without requesting your customer, or like whoever is the owner of that data center, without requesting them for opening any inbound port. It just still works on that same outbound HTTPS connectivity, and Arc agent takes care of everything. So that was there, and there is some more capabilities. When you Arc enable any of this server, whether it's Windows or Linux server, it gets listed on Azure dashboard. But along with that, if there is a SQL server running on this VM or on that particular server, Arc agent also detects that and register that specific SQL server as well. So you'll get some more capabilities that is free of cost, best practices assessment that comes out of that, and you can even secure that that SQL server using Defender for databases. Before I jump on Kubernetes section, let me quickly show you how it looks on the Azure portal itself. So I have this demo environment, and as you can see over here, this is my resource group. As you see here, there are a bunch of virtual machines listed. These are Azure virtual machines. And if I go a little up, you can see there are this servers which appears as server Azure Arc. So these are the servers. You can think of it as any physical or virtual machines running outside Azure. Let it be on premises, let it be at the edge or on other cloud providers. But it gets listed over here. All that Arc agent does is it just sends back this small set of metadata, which version it is, operating system, and the platform, and other detail, and that is it. No other information, no other data comes to Azure. It's just that much. And what you get after that enablement is all these capabilities. And as I mentioned, these are optional capabilities. You can enable whichever capability you want. Arc enablement itself is a free service. You can do that. You can apply tags over here. You can search these resources through resource graph. You can go through inventory and change tracking and everything. You can use this auto manage, which is more kind of a desired state configuration kind of capability, which is recently released. You can utilize Azure update management, monitoring for the insights of the server. You can go through all the security and all other capabilities as well. So there's at high level, all these things gets enabled once you Arc enable any of this server. And I know I was going to talk about the Arc enabled Kubernetes as well. But before I go there, let me take reverse route and show you the demo. Not the demo, but the actual view, how it looks. So these are a couple of Arc enabled Kubernetes clusters. This is Scapi cluster, this is Rancher cluster. I know it's a demo environment, but these are not AKS. They are not supposed to run on the Azure or anything. They're IaaS based or on-premises clusters. And you can see once you Arc enable them, you can see all of them. You get all these monitoring capabilities and all the Azure policies, GitOps. So this GitOps and open service mesh, it helps a lot with the automated application deployments or the storing your server this cluster configuration in the source code repositories, or even you can go with this blue-green kind of deployments from your source code repositories itself, right? You can apply policies, you can go through all those compliance and everything that internal already covered. You can have this extensions deployed directly from here without needing to open an inbound port. And once there is another thing like resource bridge, that's a kind of small deployment. Once you do that, you can even manage, or see many of this, like the workloads that is running on the cluster. You can look at or manage the services and ingress, storage, and bunch of configurations around that as well. You'll get cluster insights over here once you onboard that on-premises cluster. So you see here that, right? You get cluster, you get nodes, controllers, even at the containers level as well, you get the insights. And similarly, yeah, right. So these are the containers running on one of the cluster that I enabled. So this is from the monitoring standpoint. And once we go on the security side, you'll see, there are 2 security alerts that is available. I know it's a demo environment, so it doesn't have many heavy workload, but you can, fully utilize this Defender for cloud, for containers as well on the workload that is running outside Azure data center. I'll do a quick time check. I know we are running a little over, but I'll quickly try to cover up some of the slides before we open for the questions. So the next,
Cal,
there
was an ask. You ask on the chat about showing how to add agent or get a script to run on VM.
Oh, yeah, sure. Thanks, Indranil. So yeah, you can go on Azure, and Azure Arc is not kind of service or something that you need to enable. It's just, it's just enabled by default, and you can onboard servers and clusters on top of that. So if I go over here and search for Arc, or I have it already over here, I can go over there, and you see there is this try Arc box as well. Somebody mentioned that they are planning to deploy the Arc. You can try out this Arc box. Once you click on it, it provides you all the direction, but it will create a virtualized environment, the same environment, similar environment that I'm demoing over here, but you can take advantage of it. And here you can see there is this infrastructure onboarding thing. So if you go on that, you can onboard your server, clusters, or SQL Server, and so on. So if I simply show you how to onboard a server, you want a single server or multiple servers, you can provide service principal over here and get a script for multiple servers. I'll just simply go with the simple one. But once I'm here, I can go ahead and provide whatever my resource group and other components, my connectivity method, and that is it. And whatever like default tags that I want to apply on it, and then that is it. I'll get the script, I can download it and run on the server. Once it is done, you can see all those Arc-enabled server and machines over here as well. This is for the virtual machines, but Stack HCI, Kubernetes cluster, these are two clusters that I onboarded, and the servers as well. And you can see all this resource in the specific resource group as well, wherever I have, onboarded them. Right. So if I jump back on the demo slide. Okay, so this pillar more talks about the Kubernetes. I know I gave demo, I'll show you the demo things earlier, but at high level, once you Arc enable any Kubernetes cluster, you can, you get the option to enable all the security, operations, observability solution, and many of these automations that you do on the AKS, something similar that you can do on your on-prem clusters as well. And for the app dev guys, this GitOps, I have some of this demo around this GitOps and OMS. It makes it easy for controlling my Kubernetes cluster-based deployments, application deployments, and some of the cluster configuration as well from my source code itself, rather than going on each and every individual cluster and managing them. So here is a list of many of those capabilities which are now available. You can have at-scale Kubernetes management, GitOps pipeline, and the open service mesh that I just mentioned about. And definitely Azure monitoring and security for container itself, the specific modules for the containers. And another thing, as I mentioned, once you create custom location on top of this Arc-enabled Kubernetes cluster, on top of that custom location, you can deploy as your app services or as your database services, as your machine learning components, and so on. All right. So at the moment, there is Azure SQL Manage instance, which is generally available that you can deploy on any Arc-enabled Kubernetes cluster. Well, most of the app services, including logic apps, functions, app services, or API management, they are in preview right now. And similar case for many other databases like PostgreSQL, that is also in preview. All right. So yeah, this slide shows you you can have you can manage the entire Kubernetes estate, I would say, whether it's running as an AKS on Azure, whether it's running as an AKS on Windows Server or Azure Stack HCI, or on any of the Windows IoT devices at the edge, or whether it's running, Arc-enabled Kubernetes cluster, let it be any like OpenShift or EKS, VMware Tanzu, any CNCF certified Kubernetes cluster can be Arc-enabled, and you can manage all of them from the single pane of glass or from the single common dashboard and monitor them, secure them all through one endpoint. Right, I'll not go through all this in-depth services with respect to time, and I know I've already mentioned about most of this thing. You can monitor all this, you get the insight even at the containers level, not only the nodes and the cluster, but the container level as well, and you can defend or secure your your on-prem or non-Azure Kubernetes distribution over here. I see the question about the GitOps pipeline. Yeah, I mean, I don't think this will be like, a right platform to do that, because there's more about the security. So we are trying to focus on that. But yeah, there are definitely some of the previous Academy sessions that we have recorded. The recordings are available where we have demoed the GitOps option along with the open service mesh as well. But if you need, you can reach out to the PTSs or PDMs with the account, and we are happy to provide another in-depth session or the live demos for your organization. Okay, so back to this. Yeah, but it's more about like you get the similar monitoring and security experience as you have on for the AKS on your Arc-enabled Kubernetes cluster. These are like a bunch of other capabilities. Now you can have Azure AD-based RBAC control to manage your cluster as well. You can have cluster or namespace scoped, controls. You can define your custom roles as well and manage like who can run certain kubelet commands on the Kubernetes cluster and other stuff from Azure AD RBAC based access control itself. The Cluster Connect is the capability that I mentioned, which is great relief for the security uh, uh, security consideration, where if I need to manage any of this Arc-enabled Kubernetes cluster, I need to run certain commands on top of that. I don't need to ask my partner or uh, any respective organizations to poke hole in the firewall. I don't need to ask them. As long as my Arc agent is there and it has outbound connectivity over HTTPS to my Azure control plane, I can run those commands. It uses some reverse proxy and it makes it and enables me to do that. And similar thing for the uh, for the uh, for the GitOps and open service mesh as well. I can have my Flux controller deploy on that particular Kubernetes cluster, and it can take care of fetching the latest source code or latest configuration from the source code repository and get it deploy on one or more clusters at the same time. And the third capability, custom locations, as I mentioned. Once you create a custom location, you can deploy many of this as your PaaS services on top of that. So you have as your PaaS services running at your on-premises data center without investing a lot in, or buying or creating a mini hub or mini data center or mini Azure data center at your factory floor or at your retail stores. This is the GitOps thing. I've just added slides over here for a reference. I know we're not going to look in depth over here, but this is one of the greatest capabilities for the AppDev guys. Next one is it talks more about
do a time check. We have 7 more minutes.
Sure, thanks, Indranil. I'll just quickly go through this in next 2 minutes, and then we'll open bridge for the questions. So this is more about deploying this data and machine learning PaaS services at your Arc-enabled on your Arc-enabled Kubernetes. And this is the list of high-level available services and some preview services. I'll not go through all of them, but there's this Arc-enabled SQL Server capability where SQL Server is running on on one of the VM or physical server. And apart from that, there's Arc-enabled SQL Manage instance or SQL Postgres, Arc-enabled PostgreSQL. All these are also available to try. This is just a decision matrix for your reference I've added over here. And some of the benefits that once you have this as your PaaS services or Arc-enabled components deploy, you'll get all the cloud benefits, whether it's being that service being up to date or getting inbuilt security or integration with Azure RBAC and Azure policy scaling and some of the DevOps capabilities. So all those cloud native innovations or benefits will be available. I'll not go through the slides, but it's more about performance criteria things. But there was some use case that was done with some specific hardware, and it gives excellent performance at the on-premises as well. So it's not only like just migrating your workload to the Azure SQL Manage instance. Running on the Azure data center is not only the solution when you need performance. You can have similar benchmarking performance at your on-premises as well. Similar thing, what we discussed about the data services, you can even deploy as your machine learning components at your on-premises on your Arc-enabled Kubernetes cluster. There are some high-level security details. I'll not go through them. It's all listed over here. But what are the features that are security features that are available with Azure Arc-enabled SQL Server and Manage instance? And the last one is the last capabilities around deploying Azure Stack HCI, which is our stack member. So you can have that hardware purchased from one of the OEMs, which is Microsoft certified, and it comes with Azure Stack HCI operating system. Or along with that, we also provide MEC, which is Azure's private multi-access edge compute that also helps with deploying this 5G and other solutions. So these are like hardware specific things. Instead of running as your Stack Hub and creating your mini as your data center and operating through it, you can even go with Azure Stack HCI and run this lightweight solution. And on top of Azure Stack HCI, you can, let me see if I have this, it's diagram. On top of this hardware that you purchase, Azure Stack HCI operating system runs, which has inbuilt Azure Arc integration, which connects to the Azure. And on top of that, you can have Windows or Linux workload or even the AKS itself deployed. And on top of that, you can run your workloads. So these are the capabilities, bunch of security things, but I know we already mentioned about Defender, there's just-in-time access or firewall and other capabilities that comes out of integrating your on-premises workload with the Arc. Some of the customers and pricing, I know I'm glad I already mentioned, there is no additional cost for Arc enablement itself, but there is some additional cost associated when we go with the guest configuration policies or monitoring and defenders, depending on like what are the services you are taking or what you're registering for, how much logs is being transferred or stored on Azure and so on. So I have added a couple of slides at the end over here just for a reference to see how cost works for your specific scenario. Please don't go with the prices over here. Always refer to the Azure calculator or latest documentation to get the correct numbers. These numbers are for reference, and it depends on the date and time when the slide is created. Some of the comparison metrics over here. And then I've added some of the scenarios. I know we don't have time to go through that, but I already covered one of the scenario in the beginning. When you migrate certain servers or workloads, if you cannot migrate some portion of it, you can Arc enable that. You can gain not only generate ACR out of that, but you get great relief in terms of operations, security, and governance for that leftover workload. So that is there. I know I had like about 70, 78, 80 slides, but some of these are resources that you can refer to if you want to start with Azure Arc and Azure Stack HCI. Thank you. If we have time, we are open for the questions here.